Have you ever stopped to think about what it was like before you could just fire off a text? Or before your mobile calls were actually clear and, private? Well, today we're going to jump back to the 1990s to unpack the story of 2G. This is the technology that literally dragged us out of an analog past and into the digital world we live in today. So, let's get into it.
To really get the impact of 2G, you've got to understand this massive divide between the old world and the new one. I mean, look at this. On one side, you have 1G. It's analog, which means it was fuzzy, totally insecure, and all it could do was voice calls. But on the other side, you have 2G, promising this whole new digital experience. Clear sound, real security, and this revolutionary new thing called text messaging. This wasn't just a small step up. It was a completely different ballgame.
Now, don't get me wrong, the first generation of mobile phones was absolutely revolutionary. I mean, for the very first time, you could make a call without being literally tied to a wall. But that revolution came with some serious growing pains.
Yeah, this slide pretty much sums up the daily headaches for anyone with an early mobile phone. The calls were all crackly, they'd often sound super distant, and poof, they'd drop without any warning. And maybe worst of all, there was zero security. Seriously, anybody with a simple radio scanner could just listen in on your private conversations. On top of all that, the system was incredibly inefficient with the airwaves, which meant fewer people could even use the network at the same time. Something had to give.
And that big change finally arrived in the early 1990s. It was a groundbreaking solution that didn't just tweak the old system, it threw it out and replaced it with something fundamentally different. This was it. This was the dawn of the digital age for mobile.
So what is 2G, really? Well, simply put, it was the very first mobile system that was built on digital technology. Instead of sending your voice as this continuous wavy analog signal, 2G took your voice and converted it into a precise string of ones and zeros. And that one little change, it made all the difference in the world.
I absolutely love this analogy because it makes the whole concept so easy to grasp, right? An analog signal, it's like a watercolor painting. It can get kind of fuzzy, the colors can bleed into each other, but a digital signal, it's like building with Lego bricks. Every single piece is perfect and distinct. So when you rebuild that picture on the other end of the call, you get an exact crystal clear copy of the original. No more static, no more fuzz.
And this is where you really see the payoff of that Lego-like precision. All of a sudden, voice quality was incredible. For the first time ever, calls could actually be encrypted, which made them secure. The networks themselves became way more efficient, letting more people make calls at once. And then, there was the real game changer, the feature nobody really saw coming, the short message service, or as we all know it, SMS.
So yeah, while better-sounding calls were a huge deal, it was this simple little text-based feature that would go on to completely redefine how billions of people communicate. 160 characters. That was it. That was the limit. And this constraint, it wasn't some kind of bug. It was a feature that forced us to invent a whole new language of being brief and efficient. Think about it. LOL, BRB, TTYL, all of that digital shorthand we use was born right here, a direct result of the design of the 2G system. It was a cultural revolution packed into just 160 characters.
So how did all this digital magic actually work under the hood? It might seem really complex, but the core idea is surprisingly straightforward. It really all comes down to 3 steps: converting, compressing, and sending.
Okay, so here's the process in a nutshell. First, your phone's microphone picks up your voice, and a little chip inside converts that analog sound wave into digital data, those ones and zeros we talked about. Second, to save space and be efficient on the network, that data gets compressed. And finally, it's transmitted as a clean, perfect digital signal to the nearest cell tower. It was simple, elegant, and totally revolutionary.
Now it's interesting, not all 2G was created equal. There were actually 2 major competing standards, GSM and CDMA. You can think of it like this. GSM used a method that gave each person their own little time slot to talk in. CDMA was different. It let multiple people talk at the same time, but it used a special code to keep all their conversations separate. In the end, GSM won out and became the global standard, which is a big reason why today you can travel to different countries and your phone just works.
But as totally groundbreaking as 2G was, it was really only the first big step into our digital world. Its success opened our eyes to new possibilities, but it also had some very clear limitations that basically paved the way for the next generation.
The key thing to remember here is that 2G was built for one thing: voice, with a little bit of text on the side. It was never, ever designed for the internet.
The data speeds were just painfully slow. I mean, think old-school dial-up modem slow. Trying to load a web page was a nightmare, and you could just forget about sending photos or videos. So 2G had opened the digital door, but it couldn't quite get us into the rich, visual world of the internet that was just starting to bubble up.
And this timeline really puts it all into perspective, right? 1G in the 80s gave us mobile voice. Then 2G in the 90s took that voice, made it digital, and added text. It was the absolute essential bridge that then allowed 3G in the 2000s to finally bring the real internet into our pockets. Each generation stood directly on the shoulders of the one that came before it.
And honestly, that is the ultimate legacy of 2G. It was the critical digital backbone. Without that massive shift from analog to digital, without the introduction of sending data in little packets, even tiny ones for text messages, the entire mobile internet, the app economy, the smartphone in your hand right now, none of it could exist.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. 2G took a seemingly simple concept, a short 160-character message, and it completely changed society. So as we look around at all the tech emerging today, from AI assistants to things like blockchain, what's the simple innovation that we might be underestimating right now? What's the thing that's going to completely redefine how we live and connect in the decades to come?